How often do you think kids that are adopted seek out their biological parents?
Like a percent?
Yeah, sure.
I feel like it's high.
Yeah, because I don't remember what I was watching, but somebody like went and found their biological parents.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that seems like something that would happen, but also it seems like a very movie thing to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I get that there's a romanticized idea of what that entails, yeah. But I think a lot of the times it's hammed up for like documentaries and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's probably just like, let's check Facebook, let's ask some family members if they know where these people might be, you know.
Because I feel like most of the time it would be like, you go and meet that person, and then they're like, yeah, no, I just couldn't take care of you.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, goodbye.
Yeah.
Now I know who you are and you exist. But also at the same time, I feel like if I was adopted, I would think that and be like, well, I don't really want to get in contact with that person.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's two sides to it. One is like, I never really got the insult of like, oh, you're adopted. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, so mom and dad really wanted me then.
Exactly. I had people who chose me instead of, oops.
Yeah. So I've really never fucking understood that. Like, every time someone goes, you're adopted, I'm always like, that's a weird insult. Like, is the implication that they are loved less? Because no, they went through a lot of shit to get that kid. A lot of shit.
I had a dad who wanted to be a father, not just a dude that loved busting inside chicks.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, yeah, it's one of those things where, like, I don't know what the outcome is, but I know what the want is. You know, there is undeniably, like, just a gut, like, thing about your biological parents.
Yeah.
It's not love necessarily. I mean, obviously, love is something that's, like, born out of, you know, a relationship with that person. But there is that weird, like... But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there's, like, a weird, like, thing where it's just, like, I don't know. Like, that's my mom, you know? Like, that's my dad. Like, having had other figures in my life, you know, like stepmoms or stepdads, you know, there's definitely, like, a love there, but it's, like, very clear, like, oh, there's a cap on where this can go. And, like, no matter how supportive and close, because I've been very close with, like, for example, my stepmother, and I love her very much. But it's, like, just, I can't describe how it's different with my mom. Like, that's just my fucking mom, you know what I mean? Like, and also having, like, an estranged biological father, who is a piece of shit that I don't want a relationship with. It is still one of those things where, like, multiple times a day it still crosses my mind. And like, oh yeah, I have a dad out there somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, someone who is, like, genetically me to a degree. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but yeah, no, my thing about it though is like, yeah, there's like a cap with your step whatever. Mm-hmm. But also, isn't there one with your dad because of just your history, you know?
Like, are you saying, is there a cap there, or does it... Do I feel like it exceeds the cap?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like what you're saying is with a biological parent, the degree of love you can have for that person is way higher than someone
like
who's
uncapped.
not biologically your parent. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is with the degree, the relationship you have with your biological dad compared to your dad, there's a cap on biological dad that is probably lower than dad.
Yeah.
Because of just the relationship you guys have had.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's also one of those things where, like, you know, biological dad was never there. Yeah. And dad was. So dad, you know, is kind of in the uncapped range for sure.
Yeah, that's
For clarification, yes.
And again, I'm not adopted. I wouldn't know any of this. But that was my kind of thinking when I was thinking about this. Like, hey, man, fucking biological dad didn't want me, so there's only so much I can get from this guy.
Sure.
I get it'd be nice to know where you genetically came from and see an old man that kind of looks like you. But also at the same time, dad's got my back, and I love that guy to pieces, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, and, you know, that's another aspect of it as well, is, like, it's not like a this isn't enough thing.
Yeah.
Like, I need more daddy.
Exactly.
It's purely a curiosity. Like,
it's like, well, I do have two dads. I'm getting enough, but it'd be nice to see a second dad.
No, I mean, I guess, like, it'd be like if, like, you just, it's, it is like if you just found out your dad wasn't your dad, wouldn't you want to go find that guy?
That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, would you, like, objectively, like, if you found out right now that Raleigh was not your dad and your mom was like, I know who your real dad is.
Yeah, if my dad sat me down.
Would you be curious?
I went, listen, Nick, I know we look identical, but I'm not your dad.
I know you look just like me. What would be in that situation? Let's say Raleigh sat you down and he was like, hey, I am just straight up not your biological dad. I don't think that matters. I still love you the same. I hope you still love me the same.
I don't know.
To which you would, objectively you would.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would have to, like, it would depend on the more information I get. Like, hey, Mom, does biological dad know I exist? Mm-hmm. And if he didn't, maybe I'd go and try to find him.
But if he did, you wouldn't?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe when I'm old and I'm like, nah, he might die soon. I should probably get in touch with this guy. But, right now, no, Raleigh's doing the job.
Yeah.
And he's the only dad I need, I think.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But also...
Well, that's the thing I want to say also is I don't think in all of those situations... Again, like I said earlier, like I don't think the thing is that like, oh, I need more dad.
Yeah, no,
it's just this weird thing that I can't explain. Where like
it's like
I'm not seeking out my biological dad by no means. You know?
Yeah, no, I know.
But like I said, it still crosses my mind every now and again. Like, things were different if he hadn't been such a piece of shit. Mm-hmm. Aside from abandoning me,
yeah.
If just the abandonment was the issue, that's usually the thing where I'm like, I wonder, you know?
Yeah, and I can't. I'm arguing with you or having this conversation with you.
I don't know that we're arguing. I think we're having a conversation.
But no, I mean, like, I'm going, yes, but
yeah,
not because I like disagree. just because we're doing a show right now. That's why I'm doing it to make it perfectly clear. Yeah. I am 100% sure that if I actually was adopted, I would think of this completely differently. But trying to fill those shoes right now, thinking about it, if I found out I had a biological dad who knew I was around, but didn't try and be my dad at all throughout my life. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like a majority of me would be like, well, like what you were saying earlier, I have a dad that wants to be my dad. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure how much of me wants to meet dad that doesn't want to be my dad.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think the people who are adopted like seek out that parent because they're like, oh, he's got to be the greatest.
That's a great point. I honestly hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah.
But that makes absolute sense to me now. Where it's like
just straight up curiosity. Like,
like I gotta see
guy.
I want to see an old man version of me. Yeah, for sure. Anyway, I thought for some reason I thought that would be this conversation would be funny in some way.
Yeah.
We could do another one if you'd like.
Do you have a bit about it?
No, I thought we'd come up with a bit in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Should we take improv classes?
Yes.
Yeah, to be funnier.
Yes.
Because we've been combing through some of these episodes to like make some TikToks, and we're like, some of these just aren't funny, which isn't good. So we want to start taking some classes or working some improv into the show.
Yes, and
theme song.
But yeah, I feel like you kind of like we've both been dancing around like the double-edged sword of it, which is like, yes, you have that morbid curiosity, right? Mm-hmm. But also, I think a lot of the times when people think that, where they're like, I just gotta know. Yeah. Then what? Because you're right. I think earlier you pantomimed like a kind of a conversation, like I couldn't raise you earlier. All right, see ya. You know, and you just kind of go your separate ways, kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. Kind of how it usually goes, barring like someone being like, oh my god, and like they have like a movie moment rekindling or whatever. But yeah, I mean, yeah, like I guess what do you actually get out of it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and that's my thing. Obviously, again, for the 1000th time, I'm not adopted, so I don't know how it feels. But the idea of being like, you know what, I'd like to have one more extremely complicated relationship in my life. Yeah.
How about we relive some trauma?
Yeah, exactly. How about every time I have a birthday party or something, I have to think about, what about this guy? Do I invite him?
Another birthday to remember? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess speaking from my experience, the only thing I can really come up with, which has not been enough to tip the scales in another direction, is just like something I value a lot from like my dad, or my mom, or my grandparents, or whatever it is just little stories that I would have otherwise not known, you know?
Okay, yeah.
Like, you know, my grandma Rose, you know, her parents just giving her a quarter and be like, yeah, go down to the main art, whatever. Just to like waste your whole day kind of a thing. Or, you know, like my grandpa the other day told me that story about like, yeah, it was like the sun was like setting and I was out biking with like 3 other guys and we passed a White Tower and I don't know why, I just had a hankering for the hamburger, so I went in. He's like, and then we're biking around for a while. He's like, and I went back and I asked my mom for a quarter so I could go get another White Tower. And he was like, yeah, I don't know. He's like, I just couldn't get enough of them. For some reason, I went back like 3 or 4 times that night, you know? The story means nothing. But for some reason, to me, it means something, like just visualizing, you know. For lack of a better term, it's almost like, even though it seems mundane, which it is so mundane, it's like it just part of your lineage, kind of, that thing where it's just like,
no, it's like in a way, in a more extreme way, because like you said, it's part of your lineage. If you had a time machine, you would for sure go back to the 40s and just look around at people doing shit on the street and go, oh, holy shit.
Yeah.
And the idea of thinking about your grandfather as a boy riding his bike in the 30s or 40s or however old your grandfather is. Yeah, that's a fun thing to know and think about.
Yeah, like, you know, something I've thought about a lot, and I'm sure you have before, is like, if I had a time machine or sent back in time in some way, snapshot my dad at 16, 17 in like junior, senior year, my dad, like, would I get along with who he was?
Yeah.
Not even the one way where like, would he like me, but would I even like him? No offense to him, you know?
Yeah, no.
But it's just that thing where it's like, you know, if I'm in that same situation and my son has come back to hang out with me at 18 or 19, I would hope to a degree my son wouldn't like who I was then, to some degree. Not totally be disgusted, but
no,
like,
I know what you mean, because the ages of 15 to 20-year-old Nick, I think that guy sucks.
Yes,
and that's correct. You should feel that way.
Yeah.
And if my son at 15 to 20 didn't like Nick at 15 to 20, I'd be like, I'm doing a good job as a dad. Yeah,
exactly. You know, because that was something my dad always said growing up, was like, I want you to be better than me.
Yeah, exactly. Know? But also, I think maybe if I went back in time and hung out with 26-year-old Raleigh Johnson, and I ignored some of the, for sure, problematic language he uses because it's the 90s or 80s or whatever, I don't know. I would maybe get along with that guy. But also, we talk about this every now and then. Dads just love fighting.
Yeah.
Dads used to just love fighting. And I think I'd be like, nah, Raleigh, I'm not going to fight these guys with you.
I don't know what it is. Like, I'm being a bit like hyperbolic or maybe poetic or romantic about it. But there's also a degree to which I almost feel like when I hear those stories, it's almost like, I mean, it's classic storytelling. Yeah. But I'm transplanted into that moment. And there's a degree to where it feels almost like sitcom levels of like, damn, it's kind of like me in the 70s. Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like that thing where it's like, he's almost a surrogate for me. Like, I'm almost in that time through this story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then also there's just another thing where it's like, you know, it's part of like realizing that adults are also just people who don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, so hearing stories about like, you know, my granddad like having this job but losing it because he keeps waking up late, and then his like stepdad drives cab and has his cab paid off and like lets him just drive cab to like make ends meet, so he's out driving cab all night.
Yeah.
You know, for a couple of years, just picking people up at the airport and driving around smoking cigarettes and driving cab.
Yeah, I remember having a conversation with my dad where I won't go into specifics for my father's own privacy, but just, I don't know, you get to that point maybe this isn't an everybody thing where you get to a certain age and you and your dad maybe allegedly share like drug stories and him being like, here's what I would do when I was X or Y, and how I would relieve that situation because it was maybe too much, and being like, either A, that's insane, or B, oh my god, Dad, I've done the exact same thing.
My dad told me he had a buddy who had a map with a mark on everywhere he had jerked off.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And there were more marks than just his own home?
Yeah.
That's insane. When I hear old guys tell stories, or even young guys tell stories about doing that anywhere other than their house, I'm like, you're a monster.
Yeah.
That's what that means. Sorry if you've done it anywhere other than your home or someone else's home, but...
I have a way of bringing it all back home, though. Here's a great story from my grandma Rose, or whatever, right? We're talking, and she's talking about the main art situation, the quarter, and go watch movies and stuff. And at one point, you know, she was telling me about, like, raising the kids and how, like, you know, my grandpa would be out of town for work or whatever it is. And, you know, after she got the kids to bed, she would go over to the neighbor's house and hang out with her girlfriend and, like, smoke cigarettes and watch movies because, like, you know, on like Saturdays or whatever it was, there was always like a movie marathon kind of a thing all night long, and whatever, and she'd stay up and watch movies or whatever. And she was talking about, she was like, I used to watch with my dad too, and I was a little girl all the time, you know. On Saturdays, that was like the time we spent together. Was like I'd, you know, sit in his lap or whatever and watch movies and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, do you think that's where like your love of movies comes from? Because that's what she does like all day. She just watches like TCM and
so my
calls me and tells me about the movies she watched growing up and stuff like that. So I asked her, I was like, do you think that's why you're such a big fan of movies? She was like, yeah, probably. Yeah, that's probably exactly why.
You know what I just thought about? I'm getting a tear in my eye thinking about it. That's all my grandmother does, my dad's mom. Yeah, growing up, just I'd go over there all the time and watch Turner Classic Movies. Saw A League of Their Own 1,000 times over there. I should call my grandma sometime soon and be like, hey, you see any good flicks lately?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well...
Yes, and movies.
Eating Soup Alone is a podcast hosted by me, Christopher Crumley, and co-hosted by Nicholas Johnson. We try our best to ramble incoherently about a handful of movies at least once a week.
So again, we watched 2 movies this week.
Classic.
Just so us, you know. Elton's not here this week.
Thank God.
Fortunately, unfortunately, depends on how you feel about it. But just like last week, where we had to hurry up and get this done before we went and saw the Strokes, we got to hurry up and get this done because boy, do we want to play Rock Band. So we watched Synecdoche, New York and Rocky. 2 of our favorite movies. One of them's mine, one of them's yours. Of course, you've seen Rocky before. I had never seen the Synecdoche. What do you want to talk about first?
Don't care.
Don't care?
Don't care.
Mail time.
Synecdoche, New York.
Wow, you're going out that one.
Synecdoche, New York. Someone check on Charlie Kaufman. That little guy can sure make a good movie, but clearly he's not doing well. Please, I don't know who to contact about this, but I need to know he's doing well. This is the first movie he wrote and directed, and it's a surprise. Oh, it's surprise, a bummer. Life is sad and fast and scary. Charlie Kaufman won't let me forget it. 7.5 out of 10.
Chris, what's your history with... I'll let you finish crumpling that piece of paper. What's your history with Synecdoche, New York?
Saw it probably about a year ago. That's about it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh,
I saw it, and yeah, and an unnamed friend was like, yeah, I saw it, and like for the last week, I just can't get out of my head that like a relationship I just left might have been, you know, something that I regret for the rest of my life, and I just have this vision of me being old and buying cans of soup and like seeing them happy, and I'm just still alone and buying soup alone, eating soup alone.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's not where we got the name, by the way.
Yeah. No, it's not.
Yeah, the name's.
Well, no.
It's a big secret.
Yes.
And we'll never tell anyone.
And if you try, I'll censor you.
That's Chris breaking your neck.
Yeah, this is your spine, you pencil neck geek.
I'm glad we've never had that conversation. We're on the same page that we're never gonna tell anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was a movie that you've always seen and liked and wanted me to watch.
Saw about a year ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's fun to know.
Yeah. It's only the second time I've seen it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Man.
What about you?
Reality is Shattered. I watched it for the first time a few days ago with you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just... I'm a sad white guy, so I like a Charlie Kaufman movie when it's shown to me. And yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. Didn't know it was extremely funny.
Yeah.
There's just something about it that, like, through the whole movie, everything's a little bit what's the word I'm looking for?
Kaufman-esque.
It's definitely Kaufman-esque, but it's like a heightened. You know? Everything is supposed to be a little bit over the top, or a lot over the top.
Yeah.
But even when there's scenes that are extremely upsetting, there's something about it that's funny. Like, the just like, oh boy, this guy can't catch a break of all of it. Yeah. Comes off pretty funny for a lot of it. But also at the same time, I think it strikes a nice balance where I'm like, I feel bad for him, but also I don't, because he's doing some of it to himself, but also it's funny.
Right.
And yeah, I like this movie quite a bit. But I remember, after we watched it, I felt like, from what you were saying, you weren't as hot on this the second time around.
Well, I don't know about second round, but more so we just watched I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and I think that's a much more clean movie. I think this is, though I like Magnolia more, peak Kaufman, like the same way that like PTA was a bit restrained for Boogie Nights. And then went off the rails with Magnolia and made exactly the picture he wanted to in like the most frantic, frenzied way possible. Yeah. This seems like, I know it doesn't necessarily follow adaptation. I think adaptation predates Eternal Sunshine. But I relate it more to adaptation because of the play inside of a play inside of a play inside of a play. Yeah. But it seems like unrestrained Kaufman. Like someone was like, with this next one, you can just do whatever you want. Yeah. So in that way, it's a bit indulgent or messy, like something like Magnolia or, something like Donnie Darko, except that's a little different. That's someone just being indulgent because they literally are in film school and somehow landed a big, Yeah. I mean, I agree and disagree at the same time. Yeah. I feel like, this movie is, in my opinion, I think this movie is cleaner than I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Okay. For me, it feels like I'm Thinking of Ending Things feels just slightly more like do whatever you want, Charlie Kaufman. But this one for sure is, it's kind of the point by the end of it. It's a mess and kind of hard to follow because it's part of it. Because it's life. Yeah. But also, we said this after we saw it, but that doesn't make it not messy and hard to follow at the end, Overall, we follow Caden. Last name? Bowser? Caden Bowser. Enemy of Mario. Bro, I'm so upset now because Philip Seymour Hoffman's dead. If he was alive right now, he would for sure be Bowser in the new Super Mario movie. Anyways, long story short, he's, like most Kaufman movies, kind of an avatar for Kaufman. A lot of his traits are his own. He's a hypochondriac, an overthinker. He's a nebbish. He's a coward. And I don't mean that in like a mean way where I'm like, oh, you yella, but he's a self-professed like coward, Yeah. And he's in a relationship. His love life, in terms of his wife, not going great. Very early, we see the couples counseling, where she's laying there and she goes, I frequently fantasize about Caden being dead so I can move on guilt-free. Is that awful? Is that horrible? And the therapist says, how does that make you feel, Caden? Does that He's like, not good. And she's like, good. But anyways, has a daughter. Seems to love the daughter quite a bit.
Olive, yeah.
Yes, much more than his wife. Then from there it gets very messy.
Yeah, as I've told you, we watched this movie and I was like, all right, I'm going to go watch a bunch of analyses about this movie.
Yeah.
And again, like the last coffee movie we watched, it's all up to you.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, there's some pretty cool things in this like beginning of the movie that you just talked about.
Yeah.
Like obviously at the end of the movie, time is just zooming.
Yeah.
But it's zooming at the beginning of this movie too, in just little ways that I really appreciate and I like, that you don't really notice when he wakes up at the beginning. Also, fun fact, I noticed that at the end of the movie, obviously he's got the earpiece in and the director's talking to him and they're like, and it's 7:42, 7:43, 7:44. And then he goes and sits down on that couch with whoever the actress is, and there's like a spray painted clock on the wall that says 7:44. At the beginning of this movie, he wakes up at 7:45, and like it fades in from gray, where the movie fades out from gray when he dies. I'm like, oh, that's a nice little touch, and you know, what's
time is a flat circle.
Time is a flat circle, and Evelyn, I think her name is, says, you know, the ending is baked into the beginning. So there's a lot of things at the beginning of this movie like that. Like the wife is constantly coughing because, you know, she has lung cancer, which she eventually dies from, and stuff like that. But yeah, time just zooms at the end of this, but at the beginning, it doesn't really feel like that. But that scene of them having breakfast at the beginning is 3 months.
Okay.
Like he wakes up on the radio, is like, hey, everybody, it's September 15th, 2000, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then he's reading the newspaper, and like at the top of it, it says October 9th. And then as like in the same shot as he's reading down the newspaper, it like is speeding through November. Mm-hmm. And by the time he's... Which I love the scene where he turns the faucet on and it hits him in the head and he's bleeding everywhere. When he's at the doctor's office, it's obviously Christmas there. So yeah, that one scene turns out to be 3 months. Mm-hmm. Just little stuff like that. Yeah. I like it a lot.
There's a lot of other little things that happen throughout the movie as well. Like anytime television is being watched, whether it's a cartoon or not, he's in it.
Yeah.
But it's up to you what that means. But
are we all just TV?
Yeah. He's directing a play. His wife shows no interest in it. She's going off to Berlin for a show.
What play is he directing, Chris?
Death of a Salesman.
Yeah, you mean the one play that everybody in the world knows? I don't know why that's so funny to me. It's that he's like this prestigious theater director, and he gets that MacArthur grant and gets a lot of money, but he's directing Death of a Salesman.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's so funny.
I also like that the only gimmick that landed on the MacArthur thing is just that he had young people play the old people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's a great line where his dad says he doesn't get it. There, exactly. I'll explain it to you later.
That's what I was going to say. Is his dad doesn't get it, but I also love... Him and his wife are talking about it after seeing it, walking down the street, and you just hear his dad in the background go, "It was long. You didn't think it was long?"
It's also interesting to me how worried about her health his daughter Olive already is at like 4 years old, which mirrors his own hypochondriac tendencies.
Yeah. And I love the little like the back and forth you get between him and his wife, and like what the differences are. Because I mean, in my opinion, that's the point of the movie, is he's this guy who's so afraid of dying that he's not living his life or whatever. But, and his wife, Adele, is that her name?
Yeah.
Adele is the exact opposite. Like, you know, she dies from lung cancer that she clearly has at the beginning of this movie, because she's like, just, if I don't think about it, I can live my life freely, but then also those consequences catch up to her. But a nice little conversation at the beginning with her and her daughter being like, why is my poop green? And she's like, I don't know, honey, you probably just ate something green. Yeah. And it's a nice little like, or later when they're in the car, and I love the daughter's like, I don't want blood. Yeah. And she's like, it's fine, honey, you don't have blood. And he's like, I don't think we should tell her she doesn't have blood.
Yeah, and similarly, Adele also consoles Caden by saying like, because he's like, I don't think she really consoles him. She doesn't really give a shit. Not a good marriage, but he's like, I think I have blood in my stool. She's like, you don't have blood in your stool. Much like the daughter thing. Yeah. But anyways.
Also, if I ever get to a point in my life where I'm like him and I, because of a doctor told me to, I have to have a little plastic spoon and move through my poop to see what's in there, I'm done. So the doctor's like, yeah, you're going to have to do this. I'll be like, nah, I'll let whatever this maybe kill me.
Yeah.
I'm 33. That's fine. I can live until 34. I don't, as long as I don't have to sift through my poop for disease signs of a disease. I'm fine. That's a life worth living.
Also, kind of a budding affair. Clearly, the woman who works the box office has a big old crush on Caden. I think a lot of their...
Insane to me in this movie how much he pulls. The guy that looks like an older and older and older Philip Seymour Hoffman fucks so much in this movie.
I like a lot of their little interactions. I think they're cute in like a little nerdy way. Like, you know, actually just like, and then you say to me, Hazel, what wonderful eyes, you're so beautiful, or whatever. And he pauses and he's like nervous to even say it. And he's like, Hazel, I love your eyes and you're beautiful. And then
sorry, go on.
And then he's like, what do I say next? And she's like, oh, I can't say what you say next. And he's like, why? And she's like, because it's dirty. And he's like, come on, say it.
I love that. It's a very, very cute interaction, but I also do love when it continues later when they go back to her house and she's like, I want you to get on your knees and beg me to kiss you.
Yeah. Anyways, that culminates in him going soft while they fuck, and that makes Hazel not talk to him ever again for a little while.
Because wife Adele is leaving because she paints very small paintings.
Yeah.
Another joke I love, she's like, I can't come to your play tonight, I have to box up all these paintings. And then it cuts over to the comedically small like postage boxes with her little things in there. But she's going to Germany for a month. They're all going to Germany for a month for one of her shows, and then she decides, hey, maybe just me and Olive should go. We'll talk about it when I get back.
Yeah.
And then he's going on the dates with Evelyn, and because that's just how this movie works. Hazel? Who's Evelyn?
Evelyn is the old lady who cleans the house.
That's right. Hazel. He's going, he's like somewhere with Hazel. She's like, yeah, come back to my place. He's like, yeah, but, you know, Evelyn. And she's like, she's been gone a year. And he's like, it's been a week. And it's like, yeah, because that's how this movie works.
By the way.
Adele has been gone for a week. And she's been gone for a year.
Yeah.
And then, when he goes to her house and he gets all willy-nilly. And he's like, I have a wife and a daughter. And it's like, yeah, bro, but you don't.
Yeah.
You don't.
We also glaze past one of my favorite scenes, which is Hazel buying that house that's already on fire and her being like, I don't know. I just don't know if I'm kind of scared of dying in the fire. She's like, well, how one's going to die is always a big thing, whatever.
She later goes on to be married and have 2 kids.
Yes.
With a guy named Derek, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the guy that's living in her basement when she moves in?
I think so.
That's a great joke, yeah. We missed... Oh, the funniest part of the movie to me, I'll get to it because I don't know if you know this, Chris, but I watched a lot of analyses about this movie. Mm-hmm. So I know the maybe point of this. But at first watch, it's just a very funny joke when he calls Adele in Germany. She can't hear him and the phone's breaking up or whatever. And she's like, I'm at a really big party. I'll call you back, okay, Evelyn? And then hangs up. And he starts having a seizure or something. He has just amorphous disease throughout this movie.
Yeah.
Like, he's constantly concerned he's going to die. It might be in his own head. It might not be. But he's constantly got just, bumps all over him that he's scratching at or has to go to the dentist or this and that.
It's psychosis, not like psychosis, but sounds the same.
Yeah. Anyway, he gets off the phone with Adele. She hangs up and he starts having a seizure, I guess.
I'm sick.
And I'm sick. Just wildly shaking in this fold-out couch in his living room for some reason. Yeah. And he calls 911 and he's like, I'm sick. I'm sick. And he drops the phone and you just hear the 911 operator go, hello? Ma'am? And it's just the constant miscommunication he's having with everybody all over the movie. It's important to the plot and a lifetime of that does X, Y, and Z to you, but also hilarious every time it happens.
Yeah.
Like when the phone call with what's-her-face or whenever he's talking to his therapist and she answers him 2 words before he's done with his sentence. It's so funny to me.
So from here, I feel like the movie just continues to get more and more confusing.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things going on. One is that time is blazing him by and everything is kind of like a subplot of that. Number 1 is that his family has moved on from him. Mm-hmm. And he just doesn't seem to grasp how long that's been at every turn.
We don't either, which I love. Yeah. That's the most impressive part of this movie to me is how this movie works your perception and your memories of your own life does.
Yeah. It's very well put, yes.
Yeah, like you don't understand what's going on until like I guess technically he does, but at that point everybody else knows about it already.
The Office said it best. I think it's The Office.
Yeah.
I wish you knew. The good.
I wish you knew the good times were happening before they were gone.
Yeah,
or something like that.
But anyways, so yeah, Adele and his daughter Olive have gone off to Germany with what seems like Adele's gay lover, and she becomes a successful artist, and slowly Olive becomes some sort of nude dancer covered in tattoos that Maria, the gay lover, has given to her, and later on we find that even Olive has entered into a gay relationship with Maria.
I do love the scene where he goes to, at this point he's married and has a kid with the woman starring in his play that he's gotten the grant for, and when it shows their kid, I immediately thought it was Olive. And you find out it's not, and he's like, I have to go find my daughter, and she's like, your daughter's in the other room.
Like, my real daughter. She's like, what the fuck do you mean my real daughter?
I mean my other daughter.
My first daughter, yeah.
And he's like, look at all these tattoos she has.
Yeah.
And she goes, everybody has tattoos.
Yeah.
And she picks her shirt up, and she got this giant, like a devil.
He's
on
like,
her.
I've never seen that. So funny.
And it's like, it's like just the Charlie Kaufman, like, oh, it's like a representation about how he doesn't love this woman, and doesn't know enough about her, but also hilarious.
It's also a bit absurdist as well.
Just his delivery on, well, that's the first time I've seen that is so good.
And again, a lot of things, you can argue about, like, was this intended or whatever, in terms of my perception. I love that, like, as he gets older, kind of like the cliche things that old people get scared of is what happens, like his daughter having tattoos, or like there seems to be this overwhelming military presence in the city, as well as like the constant sound of gunshots, and then there's like sexual depravity kind of like laden throughout like the background, with like a man being led and ass naked on the streets but on a leash by a woman, and also the idea that his wife like left him for a woman, and that his daughter's banging that woman too, and it's this weird thing where like they've both fucked the same woman. And
I love hearing you say that, because my interpretation, I guess, of like the constant like downfall of this society outside is him being like, I'm gonna make this play and I'm gonna help everybody because this play is gonna be eye-opening and stuff like that, but he's such a selfish man all the way through this movie that he doesn't clock what's going on in the real world outside. Oh, but to backtrack a little bit, sorry, what I was getting to is there's that scene where he goes to Germany to try to find Olive and Adele, and he ends up
meets
having Maria, and they send her, and she's like, oh, well, they sent me. And he's like, who the fuck is they? He's just screaming, and he makes a scene, and they like wrestle in this restaurant.
He's like, what have you done with my daughter? Where's my daughter?
Yeah, and it's a really like tough scene to watch, but also hilarious, because I love when Marie sits down. She has a German accent.
Yeah.
Like everybody who moved to Germany has a German accent now.
Yeah, I love that she somehow evades him, just running away. Earlier, we see that Adele has communicated to Caden that like Olive had left her diary, and he's been periodically reading that, but oddly, it continues throughout her whole life. It's not just the diary that she left when she left.
Yeah, in my mind, it's like his idea of what's happening to Olive and like what he thinks she's probably thinking now.
And he's been reading that, and through that, he finds out that her favorite color is pink, so he sends her this pink toy, which he finds in an alley that she just threw away and never actually opened.
What do you take away from that scene specifically? He finds the toy in the alley, and he puts in the fake teardrops and uses that to cry.
Two fur. I was actually thinking about that quite a bit when we watched it. Yeah. One was like, perhaps it's a medical condition and he no longer can produce tears.
Yeah, exactly, because the doctor tells him that earlier, but also it's just, it's got to mean something else for sure. Yeah,
but it also kind of plays, in my opinion, into like the theater of it. Like, it's something that like actors sometimes do if you can't cry on command. But I don't think there's any other moment that would lead credence to that being the case, because there's nothing else in the real world, quote unquote, that ever breaks like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, because the movie at the end... Sorry, I should not be eating while doing this podcast, but what's happening? At the end of this, it becomes like it is almost impossible to distinguish what's his life and what's the play he's creating.
Yeah.
And this is the only time in like the middle or beginning of the movie where something like that happens, and it's like, yeah, this is a very staged thing to do, to like make fake tears so you can cry. Yeah, I don't know.
There is also a point where he meets his daughter on her deathbed, and they have this weird gizmo that translates the German to English so they can communicate with each other. And she makes him beg her to forgive him for abandoning her to be with his gay lover Eric, which we have not actually seen. But it's also a very touching scene. This scene also really does tear at me because she's crying, and when he says, like, I beg you to forgive me for leaving, even though he objects at first because it's not his idea of reality or whatever, he eventually does say it, and then she starts just bawling, and she goes, no, I can't forgive you, and then immediately dies. Real tough scene to watch. There's also a bit with like some of the petals of her tattoo coming off, and Maria and coming in.
I love that though, because that scene, I was giggling throughout the entire thing. Yeah. Like, and I love that about this movie. That's a tough scene for you to watch, but to me, it's again what I was saying earlier. Like, man, this guy could just not catch a break. Like, this is the most over the top, like, what it would be like to see your estranged daughter right before she dies. Like, her making him forgive her.
Yeah.
And her saying no, and he's like, but none of this is true, and it's just so like, oh fuck, I can't think of an example.
Kaufman-esque. Oh, okay.
But like a black comedy where like a guy like a Curb Your Enthusiasm kind of thing where like this guy just can't catch a break. It's so funny to me.
And I'll mention some of the ways that these bleed into the other things as we go into them. And then late stage is that he somehow is like living through, whether it's in his imagination or if he's actually doing this, but Adele has a cleaning lady named Evelyn, but he starts going there to clean the house as Evelyn, has like a way to kind of feel like he's somewhat connected to Adele and Olive still. So the other thing that's going on is, yes, he's gotten this MacArthur grant and he wants to do something real, and it's almost like Magnolia, where it starts as this idea where he wants to make something true and real, and he's going to give everybody notes every day about like what happened to him yesterday, and he's like, and I'm going to do the same thing because I want to get to the cold heart truth of why I'm such a loser, coward, piece of shit, or whatever. And that slowly balloons out to like this play where like certain things he's having certain actors do, he's like, nah, wall it off, and he starts making actual apartments and stuff.
Yeah,
and
then I really enjoyed at the beginning where like I can't remember when it happens, but there's a scene where he's walking through, like I guess on the stage, and there's like a little station set up where different actors are rehearsing different scenes. Yeah, and he just goes up to them and goes, "You two are having an affair off screen." Yeah, I watched the next
like as the actors, and that's how it's affecting the performance you're giving.
And I'm like, this is really cool. Like, obviously, this isn't how a play is done, but it's like a little like assembly line that he's created where he can just run by everybody and go, "This is what you need. This is what you need. This is what you need." And I'm like, oh, that's a fun way to do it. And like, as it goes on, it's like, oh, clearly there's like other levels to this. Or people are like one floor up on a like a construction kind of site doing the scene because like it's expanding out that much, and I'm like, oh, that's a fun little thing, and then you finally quickly realize it's just ballooning out and out, where he's made cities, and then inside of that city is the city he's created for this play, and it just goes like deeper and deeper, and like just crazy shit like he's at this point Hazel, his assistant.
Yes.
Hazel becomes his assistant, and they kind of have a relationship again. And it's to the point where the man playing him is dating Hazel so he can know what it's like to be Caden. And the woman playing Hazel is dating Caden so she can know what it's like being Hazel. Yeah. And then that gets crisscrossed, and then that becomes part of the play. And it's Chris, it's too much.
So anyways, it balloons, like I said, like they start walling shit off, and then it balloons out to the point where like he's like, there even has to be a director me inside of this play, directing this play. So he hires that guy to be him, kind of a thing. And then it just keeps ballooning in where like there's a play inside of a play inside of a play, and like he's walking around directing the guy who's supposed to be him, who's directing the actual play, I guess, if you want to call it that. So that's all going on. The third thing that's going on is he's pretty much accepted, like he has no intention of getting back with Adele, but he definitely wants a relationship with Olive. Instead, his focus has turned more to, even though he marries his lead and has a daughter with her, that is not something that is high priority for him. Instead, it seems to be done just because Hazel has moved on, and he's like, well, I guess might as well, kind of a thing. Because Hazel, like we mentioned earlier, is now married with 2 kids, and then eventually her husband Derek leaves and she's single again. And like you said, there is a point where he begins dating the guy who is playing him in the play. But then later on, she reveals that she did that just to get at him, and very late into their life, they end up together.
Yeah.
And to take one step back, well, not even a third layer. We'll talk about that in a second. I'm just going to cut that a little bit. So anyways, those are the three things going on with like Olive and Adele, the play, and then the saga of him and Hazel.
Yeah. At
this point, I'm just going to read what I think has always summed up the movie for me, because as far as I've always understood it, it's a movie about string theory. Everything is more complicated than you think. You only see a tenth of what is true. There are a million little strings attached to every choice you make. You can destroy your life every time you choose, but maybe you won't know for 20 years, and you'll never ever trace it to its source. And you can get one chance, and you only get one chance to play it out. Just try and figure out your own divorce. And they say there's no fate, but there is. It's what you create. Even though the world goes on for eons and eons, you are here for a fraction of a second. Most of your time is spent being dead or not yet born, and while alive, you wait in vain, wasting years for a phone call or a letter or a look from someone or something to make it all right. And it never comes, or it seems to, but doesn't. And so you spend your time in vague regret or vaguer hope for something good to come along, something to make you feel connected, something to make you feel whole, something to make you feel loved. And that's pretty much what all of these stories kind of embody, like the Hazel thing. Like it's what stories are. It's what life is, and to that degree, it really breaks the mystique, I guess, because every movie's just kind of that. But like, it's just that thing where like communication breakdown is the heart of all problems. Like him and Hazel could have worked out if they just communicated better, you know.
It's the thing that gets me the most about Charlie Kaufman movies, where you're right, every movie is about that.
Yeah.
But then at the end, they're like, hey, we made it work. Even though all these fun guffaws that we went through.
Yeah.
By the end of it,
yeah,
hey, it all worked out.
Yeah.
That's the thing about Charlie Kaufman movies, is where that monologue happens. I'm watching it and I'm crying. Just like, it probably won't. And a Charlie Kaufman movie ends and you're like, ah, fuck, it didn't. It didn't work out for Caden.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a point earlier in the film where he tries to kill himself, which is kind of connected to like a point where, you know, something we glossed over earlier is he's having a meeting with his therapist, and his therapist tells him about a 4-year-old who wrote a book about like neo-Nazis and like falling into it and stuff like that, and yada yada. And he's like, how did a 4-year-old write a book or whatever? And she's like, I killed himself when he was 5. And it's crazy. But anyways, he was like, why would a 5-year-old kill himself? And she goes, why would you? And he's like, what? And she's like, why would anybody, or something like that.
Oh no, she
or
goes,
why did you?
Yeah. And he goes, what? And she goes, why would you?
Yeah. But anyways, so there's a point later on where he follows Hazel with her husband and her kids, and he's on the rooftop watching them. They're also on the rooftop, and he goes to jump, but someone stops him. Then fast forward to the late stage in the play, they're on that same rooftop. He's with Hazel, and Hazel's like, oh my god, this is a vacation I took with my husband at the time. And Sam, the guy who plays Caden at this point, who has now had Hazel stolen back from him because he was dating Hazel, and now Philip Seymour Hoffman is back with Hazel, and he's like, you know, it's a beautiful thing, whatever the fuck he says. He's not necessarily sad, but he decides to jump and kill himself, and he falls through like the floor a little bit. It kind of breaks underneath him. And this is a rough scene. It kind of reminds me of the death scene from SLC Punk, but I guess in just a little more mature, better movie. But he's just like, no, Sam, that's not right. Somebody stop me, Sam. I don't kill myself here. Like, he's just yelling in anger at a clearly dead body. You know?
But we've missed a huge part of this movie.
His dad dying? Is that what you're going to go for?
No.
The tiny
Sam.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I'll get to that in a second. But Sam, the guy who plays him.
It's just the guy who stalked him for 20 years.
Has been watching him for 20 years. So
yeah, you see him a lot in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. He's just hidden in the background, or not so hidden in the background.
Yeah.
When he kills himself, Sam, it's because he sees him and Evelyn together and go, oh, this is beautiful. I've been watching you for X amount of years. You've done it. You're in love. Mm-hmm. You're finally happy. And now I can die. Mm-hmm. It's very sad. And some of the stuff I was reading or whatever, Sam might be God? Sam, the name Samuel in Hebrew like relates to God or of God or something like that. And he knows a lot about Caden and like knows what he's thinking and stuff like that. Like there's that part in the where they're rehearsing with his actual wife, and Sam says something, and then the wife gets mad, And Caden's like, I didn't say that. And she goes, yeah, but he said it, which means you were thinking it. And I was like, oh, that's fucked. What was I saying? It's so hard to talk about this movie.
Oh, yeah.
So much is happening. I would like to know what somebody who's listening to this who hasn't seen the movie thinks this movie's about.
Yeah.
But to backtrack a bunch, I love, for me, one of the hardest scenes to watch. So when he starts going to like the doctor's office because his leg won't stop shaking for some reason, that's very funny. But then he runs into Hazel on the street and she tells him, yeah, I've been married to Derek for so-and-so. We're just here with the boys. And he's like, oh, the boys. And he's shaking because of his leg.
Yeah.
She goes, yeah, twins. I got 2 boys. And he goes, how old are they? And she goes, 5. And he's like, 5?
Yeah.
That's tough to watch. Like him running into his ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like that long ago to him or us because it just happened in the movie. Anyway, Sam kills himself.
Yeah, and also earlier, his dad passed away, Caden's dad, and there's a point where his mom's like, there was so little left of him, they had to fill the coffin with cotton balls to stop him from rattling around. Then it zooms out, and it's the tiniest coffin ever, and it's slowly being lowered into the ground.
Funniest
it is hilarious. But then when it gets sad is later on when like he goes to Sam's funeral or whatever, and he's talking to his wife, who's the leading actress or whatever, I think, or maybe it's Hazel, or maybe it isn't even Sam's funeral, but he's at a funeral. Maybe it's his mom's, I don't even know, but he's at a funeral. And he like looks over and he sees his dad at the funeral, and then it hard cuts to like him talking to her later. And he's like, "Was my dad at the funeral?" And she's like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Oh, he's like a tall guy. Like, did you see my dad at the funeral?" She's like, "I didn't see your dad, Caden," or something like that. You know?
Yeah, I think
sad to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. He died a few years ago.
Yeah. Anyways, eventually the
oh no, he's at his mom's funeral with the woman who is playing Hazel in the play, and then they smash.
Which they have sex in a child's bed, which, like I said, makes me think maybe Charlie Kaufman had a few specific interactions in his life, because that comes back and I'm thinking of ending things.
Yeah, exactly.
Towards the tail end, also Hazel dies from smoke inhalation from the fire that's ever raging at her house.
Right after they connect finally and decide to be together. It's very sad.
Yeah, and he finally decides that he wants the play to be the day before she died, because that was the only time he was truly happy.
Yeah, it's very all over this movie. That's sad, yeah. He keeps calling her, and she's had the same voicemail for 40 years. Like, leave a message or don't. It's your dime. But I really like. It's very sad when she dies, and he calls her.
Leaves her a voicemail. Yeah.
Leaves her a voicemail, and he goes, "I think I know how to end the play." It's like, oh, it's so sad.
Okay, let's talk about the ending.
Yes.
I don't understand it at all. He wakes up, wanders through the empty set, within the empty set, wanders through the empty set, within the empty set, while listening to Evelyn, who is the actual cleaning lady who has become him in the play and is the director, and she's instructing him to go and go and go. Eventually he finds a lady who plays Evelyn's mom in the play, who he knows this very specific interaction they had this like a picnic together, and Evelyn told her, like, in 10, 20 years time, whatever the fuck it is, like, I want to have one with my daughter right here, just like this one. And they talk a little bit about that. Then he asks if he can put his head on her shoulder. He does. They hold each other, and then the movie kind of ends.
He says, I know how to end the play. And from what I gathered, he dies.
Yeah.
The whole Evelyn is the most confusing part of this movie to me.
Yes.
Along with the ending.
Yes.
The most like concrete idea I can get out of it.
Okay.
After all the analyses that I watched.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Him and Evelyn are the same person.
Okay.
Because you never see real Evelyn.
Yeah.
You just see the woman who plays Evelyn in the play. Who ends up playing him in the play when he needs a break. And they switch places. So she plays him and he starts playing Evelyn. So all he does all day is clean. Because that makes him feel good and secure. Like you get earlier.
He does earlier, yes.
Yeah, he cleans Adele's studio in their basement when they live together instead of later when he's cleaning her apartment.
Yeah.
And it kind of, stick with me here, it ties back to some of the miscommunication and the woman on the phone calling him ma'am. Or Evelyn accidentally calling him.
There is also a point where someone asks him, "Would you have been more comfortable as a girl?" Like he says, like sometimes I feel like I would have been more comfortable as a girl.
When he calls Adele before he has a seizure, she calls him Evelyn, and then he has a seizure, calls the phone, they call him ma'am. And when he's having sex with the woman who is playing Adele, not Adele, who's playing Hazel in the play. He tells her she's pretty, and he goes, I wish I could be pretty like that, like a girl. And she goes, do you want to be a girl? And he goes, no, sometimes I just think I would have been better at it.
And then does that then fit into the my lover Eric?
Maybe.
Because there's a point where Evelyn is in bed with Eric.
Exactly. And then there's a point where we laughed when we made a joke out of it because he's, playing Evelyn, and he's got an earpiece in where the real Evelyn, as him, is directing him through his life, basically. And from what I can kind of gather from the movie is everything in his life at every point in this to make himself feel better, what he thinks he needs is a woman in his life.
Yeah.
And it's maybe kind of being shown by the end of this as he's becoming more and more Evelyn, that he's finding whatever he was looking for from women in himself. So he's quote unquote becoming more of a woman, but not in like that kind of way where it's like, oh, I don't think he's transgender, or I don't think he's like, oh, things would have been better if I was a woman. It's just another way to like symbolically show him becoming who he wants to be, which is what he was seeking from women his whole life. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that wild? Is that a bunch of horseshit? It's the most sense I can make out of the Evelyn stuff.
But anyways, this is a crazy movie, hard to talk about. Hope any of that made sense. Because, like I said, I mean, it's a very ambitious project that, again, something like Magnolia just tries to, in a sense, map out or take a snapshot of, like, just the tangled web that we weave and the interconnectedness of everything, in a sense. And, it's about decisions. It's about mistakes. It's about life. I feel like I got to give it, like, a B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really torn on this one.
Yeah.
I like this movie quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I have no idea what I would give it.
Yeah.
I want to say B, but that might be because you just said it. But also, like, I don't know if I love this movie or I just like it.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I might have to see it another time, but I don't know. For right now, I'm going to give it a B, I guess.
Yeah. It's very ambitious. Like you said, I mean, it is it's like one that I like a lot.
It's like nothing I've ever seen before, which I'll give that. I was never bored and maybe laughed quite a bit all the way through it. And I'm super impressed at how dramatic and funny it is all at the same time. Oh, yeah.
No, I'm very impressed by it. I think it's definitely an achievement. I don't know. It's just a little, like I said, indulgent and kind of
absolutely
niche. Yeah. Like, I could see a lot of people not liking it.
Yeah,
Not that that's ever a factor. It's just one of the things that comes to mind is just that thing about how it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an oddball.
Yeah, it's an odd one. And like
it's a curiosity.
I commend it for that 100%.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But I cannot tell if I just can't tell if I think this movie is genius or a bit self-indulgent.
Yeah.
Or a lot self-indulgent.
I think it's both, and that's one of the things is that it's like I can't necessarily push down to somebody like, oh, this is going to be one of the best movies you've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to be an experience, and it's good. It's really good. It's really good. I just don't know if it's one of the best movies ever made.
Yeah.
Not that any movie has to be. I mean...
No, absolutely.
As long as it's not an F, that means I liked the movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyways, we watched another movie.
Yeah, we watched Rocky.
Yeah.
Synecdoche, New York? Or Rocknectady, New York? Title of the episode, I'm thinking. I'm not having a stroke, I promise.
Yeah, I don't know. I got nothing for you.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we watched Rocky because I've been bothering Chris about it forever. And luckily we got some mail about it.
Rocky. Sly Stallone is... Whoa. Bad thunder outside. That wasn't in the letter. There's just literally thundering. Sly Stallone is the opposite of Charlie Kaufman. That big guy loves life and loves living. Are you a no-good bum from the old neighborhood who hasn't amounted to nothing? No problem. It'll all be okay. Punch, run, and jump rope your heart out, and you'll be on the fast track to a good life. But in all seriousness, films from the 70s were just built different, and the Rocky films are the perfect example. All heart, a little fat, and no wasting your time. It's all good. Watch it. Heart, 8 out of 10.
Chris, what's your history with Rocky?
Used to watch them with my grandfather. Rest in peace.
Oh, rest in peace, Grandpa.
Rest in peace, Grandpa. What's your history with Rocky? God, I feel like we should be talking about a spooky movie. All this thunder.
What's your history with the Rocky?
Thunderlips.
Thunderlips, yes.
You're gonna hit lightning and you're gonna crap thunder.
Fuck, we should have said that first. Yeah, Rocky's just obviously a movie that I've been aware of my entire life, and I had never really taken the time to watch it. And a couple of years ago, I was like, I'm gonna watch Rocky. And I watched Rocky.
It was a dark and stormy night.
It was a dark and stormy night. I rented Rocky on Amazon.
Was this during wisdom teeth removal?
It was, I think, right before it.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, oh, chef's kiss. Rocky's one of the best movies I've ever seen. And then I bought the box set of all of them and immediately got my wisdom teeth removed. So I watched the rest of the Rocky movies plus Creed 1 and 2. Just high as hell on prescription painkillers and spitting so much blood into a bucket while Rocky's just bleeding and spitting blood into a bucket. And I'm like, get him, Rock.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend that be the way you see Rocky for the first time. Go on.
Okay. From the rip, 2 through 5, less so 5. And even Rocky Balboa to a degree. But I'm really talking about the prime sequels, like 2, 3, 4. Great fun, great movies, but movies, definitely spectacles.
Absolutely,
just that thing where you're like, woof, that is a thrill ride. A lot of fun. Oh man,
look at him picking up those logs while Drago's hooked up to a computer while on a treadmill.
Which is crazy because again, it reminds me of Rocky is to the sequels a lot like something like Terminator from the other day, where it's like, whoa, this was a really like low budget, earnest attempt with no idea. Not even a glimmer in the eye of anybody that this would perhaps be this mega movie franchise, or something like Halloween, where it's just like, who would have thought they would make 9 of those things,
But it's something that I like about the Rocky movies is they kind of like, because that's what he's doing while Stallone is writing these movies. They're just reflecting his life at the time. Mm-hmm. So as he becomes one of the biggest movie stars in the world,
fighting Russians,
these movies become more and more big blockbuster Hollywood movies.
Yeah.
But this movie, the first Rocky, is just untouchable.
Yeah.
It is, I think, just top to bottom, one of the best movies ever made. And it just has so much heart. And I think Rocky 2 does as well to a degree, but obviously not as much as this one. And then, like I think we talked about this before. This one, he fights Apollo. Got to prove that he's not a bum from the neighborhood. He's got the stuff with Adrian and Paulie and blah, 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 this and that. And then 2, he's like, oh, geez, how do I deal with this fame? Got to fight Apollo again. This really compelling boxer who, was here for the spectacle at the first, and now he has to prove himself again, and this and that. And then I lost, and then I won, yada, yada. And then 3 starts, and Mr. T's like, yo, Rocky, I'm going to fuck your wife. And he's like, oh, I can't let that happen. I got to punch him to death.
Yeah. First and foremost, the story that pretty much everybody knows, Sylvester Stallone shopped this around for a while, and the biggest point of contention was that he wanted to play Rocky, and nobody really wanted him to. Really glad he did.
Yeah.
Because, Stallone is perfect in this role.
Yeah. Fun fact, had no money, had to sell his dog before selling this movie because he just couldn't afford to feed his dog, which is so upsetting.
Yeah.
And then sold this, made a lot of money, but not nearly as much as he would have if he didn't play Rocky.
Yeah.
And then bought back his dog, which is Buttkiss in this movie, which makes me so happy.
Yeah. But yeah, right from the rip, Sylvester Stallone just nails who Rocky is as a person.
That was something that surprised me the most the first time I saw this. Everyone, you hear all the Stallone impressions and stuff like that. Stallone is not like that at all in real life. Like when you hear him talk, he's a really articulate guy.
Yeah.
No one told me that Rocky is the dumbest motherfucker. Like the first time I watched this movie, I was like, oh, this is the dumbest guy to ever exist. And it makes him so good and endearing.
Yeah.
Because he's the stupidest guy you've ever met. But he's like this movie just has so much heart that you can't not love him. It's so good.
It's the thing that sells the movie, I think. It's the thing that gets you invested, is all of the talk, from people like Mickey about like, you got a heart, kid. You just got so much heart. But, yada, yada, yada. Is that, yes, Sylvester Stallone specifically, like the thing that just oozes off of every frame is like, this dude has a fucking heart of gold.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is a special individual.
And it's got like such a unique kind of charisma that you don't really see in movies anymore. Yeah.
He's just like, at your most cynical, a lot of people can be like, everybody's just a fucking jerk. I hate people, whatever. But this is a story of like the guy who restores your faith in humanity. Like that one dude, who's just a good person, top to bottom,
Yeah, there's so many moments in this movie, like even small little ones where they make me smile ear to ear because what's happening isn't good.
Yeah.
But Rocky is so upbeat and optimistic about everything. He makes, with the exception of Paulie, everybody feel better. Yeah. Like, I love, and I'm sure you do too, I love the scene where he's ice skating with Adrian. And hell, the behind the scenes story of that even echoes what I'm saying now. That was supposed to be just a scene where they're just at an ice skating rink. But they could not afford the extras. And so when they got there, on the fly, Stallone rewrote the scene so it would make sense that it's just the two of them there after hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's perfect. That's exactly like the rest of this movie. Here's a bad situation. He's like, I'm just going to make the best of it. And this scene, I think, is better for it.
Yeah.
Where just the two of them are there. But what I was getting at is, again, he makes the date nice or whatever. And then even like when she falls a little bit, and like his finger gets dislocated, and she's like, "Oh, gross." He goes, "No, it's fine. Just look, push the button, boop, and now it's fine." I'm like, "Oh, that's so good. I love it."
The other thing is, I also think this is like a really, really, really well written screenplay.
Oh yeah.
Every interaction is just laden with who each character is and their dynamic and what their goal is and how those things conflict and how their own emotions inhibit them saying some things or underline what is being said with what is meant. But yeah, it's just a marvel between, like I said, Sylvester Stallone knocking it out of the park with his performance as Rocky, and also knocking it out of the park with, as you said earlier, one of the best movies ever made. Making this, in my opinion, one of the best scripts. Like, this is a really, really good story. We start off with Rocky, kind of just eating fucking punches. He's fighting.
To be fair, we end with this movie with Rocky eating punches.
He's boxing like shit, especially though.
Yeah.
Fighting what people will later refer to as a bum, but he wins.
Spider Rico.
Later on, he is only awarded $40 of the $75 that he won because 15 for locker, 5 for that kind of a thing. Rocky goes home. May feed his turtles.
Cuff and Link. Just a garbage. Garbage apartment, but I know you've never seen the Creed movies.
Yeah.
And I don't imagine you will if I know you. But Rocky is Creed's trainer in those movies. Yeah. And he has 2 turtles in it. And he goes, "Hey, what's up, Cuff? What's up, Link?" Yeah. Those are the same turtles that are, apparently Sylvester Stallone still has. Like, they're his pet turtles.
Yeah. Then he's just kind of out on a stroll during the day. I remember very vividly there's a point where he's walking around with a ball, which he carries for the rest of the movie. Then he has a big-ass stick for some reason.
Sorry, before we get too far away, I hate the hat. Hats in all these movies. I hate Rocky's hat. It looks so dumb.
Yeah. The first one I really paid it no mind. But yeah, he's got a big stick for some reason. A guy drives by in like a high-low or whatever the fuck those things are called.
Docks,
and he chases him. He's like, hey, and he hits the thing with it. Then he shakes this guy down for money. Turns out that's what he does day to day to make cash. As he shakes people down. But he's also, again, got a heart of gold. The dude's like, I only got 130. I don't have 200 for Mr. Gazzo or whatever. And he's like, he takes it. And he goes to talk to Mr. Gazzo, and Mr. Gazzo's like, "Hey, when I tell you to break a fucking thumb, you break a fucking thumb." He's like, "I know, but think about it. I break his thumb, and now he can't work. Now he can't pay you back, kind of a thing." And he's like, "Listen, I don't care about any of that. You know what I mean? People are gonna start taking me as a joke if you don't start doing what I say. If my threats are empty, people are gonna notice that kind of a thing."
And it's something that it again reflects who Rocky is. I don't know why, but Gazzo is the nicest crime boss I've ever seen. Probably because I think he knows who Rocky is and what a sweet guy he is. And he's like, he's not that upset about it. He's like, "Okay, Rocky, when I tell you to break someone's thumb, just can you please next time for me break somebody's thumb? Or even later when he gets the big fight and he's like, or he finds out he's dating Adrian. He's like, hey, here's some money. Go take
Give
Adrian.
him $50.
Okay. Yeah, it's great. I love Gazzo. I think he's great in this movie.
Then he goes to his locker, finds out that Mickey has given his locker away because
I'm so sorry to keep interrupting you, but I love when he goes to open his locker, tries it a couple times, goes, and
pulls out of his hat the combination.
He's got the combination because he's like, I'm Rocky. I know I'm Rocky. Yeah. Sometimes I forget things, and there's a good chance I forgot the combination.
Yeah, very endearing. But yeah, Mickey gave away his locker, and Mickey gives a big speech about how he's like, you got talent. You had it 10 years. You did nothing with it. You wasted it. You got heart. That kind of a thing. But like, you out of here. You're a bum. He's like, hey.
Breaking legs? Yeah. It's a living. It's a waste of life.
Yeah. He's like, hey, I won last night or whatever. He's like, oh, yeah? He's like, hey, who won? He's like, yeah. Who'd you fight? Spuderico. He's a bum, and so are you, Yeah.
Burgess Meredith is just fucking so good in these movies. Unbelievable.
Yes. From there, I think we may get a scene where he stops in to talk to Adrian at the pet store. I like their interactions because you can see that Adrian is like interested, but she's really shy. And I think even earlier, you got a shot of him in his own mirror, like rehearsing the joke about how the thing where he's like, hey, like he doesn't even finish the joke. He just says like, yeah, last time I bought turtle food here is more moths than flies, or whatever. And so when he goes into the shop, he says to her, he's like, hey, last turtle food I bought, it's more moths than flies. What happens with the turtles? They eat it, and the moths, they get stuck in their throat, or whatever, and they start coughing, or whatever, and I hit them back in their shell. You know what happens to them? They get shell shocked. Like,
it's so good. I love it, and I love like it's one of those scenes where it's like, obviously it's the first time we're seeing it, but you can like the gist that you're getting here is Rocky comes by every single day with a new joke for Adrian, and she's just the shy girl that works behind the counter. And
I think he even says like, I'll be back later and I'll have another joke.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's like I think she plays it perfectly.
Yeah, because she like looks at him when he's leaving and stuff.
Yeah,
in, like,
if not like a little too understated, but I think I can't remember her name. I'm so sorry, but the woman who plays Adrian, sister of Francis Ford Coppola. Yeah, she just plays it like she just gives me these little glances or these just like little half smiles where it's like, I do like Rocky. Yeah. I do really appreciate that Rocky comes here every day and has a different bad joke that he wrote for me. Yeah.
From there, he might go hang out with Paulie a little bit. I think he might go talk to her about like, hey, how come your sister? Yeah, I think he goes and sees Paulie at the
bar.
Yeah, he's in the bathroom. He's like, I'd like to kill the son of a bitch who broke this damn mirror or whatever. But anyways, they talk. He's like, how come your sister don't like me much or whatever,
I love before he gets in the bar, just another little Rocky the good guy thing. There's that bum on the street just asleep, and Rocky just picks him up, brings him in the bar, and puts him in a booth. Yeah. It's so good.
Anyways, they talk about that a little bit. He's like, I'll talk to her, whatever. You might get the cutaway now where like Apollo lays out that he's having that big fight.
Yeah.
And I think it might be the one where he's talking to the promoter about how he's like, he's got a break in his right hand or whatever. He can't box. And he's like, okay, well, if we can't deliver the best match, whatever, let's deliver a spectacle. He's like, we're in the city, we're in Philadelphia. Let's give an average man a shot at it. It's like the American dream, everybody gets their chance, comes around kind of a thing, I'm feeling charitable. Let's put on a spectacle.
It's insane to me. I'm sure that this happens later in another cutaway with Apollo Creed, but the idea of them going through physical books, looking at all the boxers in Philadelphia, like, what is this book? What do you think the title of that book is? Just the Boxers of Philadelphia?
Yeah. But anyways, I like that concept a lot. Like I said, it is a spectacle. It is something that I feel like is plausible to some degree, especially at that time. Nowadays, I don't know, but yeah, just that idea of like, the thing I like the most about like Rocky is that aspect of it, like him as a symbol for hope. That's one of the things I'm most a sucker for in film. It's one of the big things that Star Wars does for me above all else. Because I'm really not that into like spacey sci-fi. I'm more of like a medieval guy, but also I don't really like Lord of the Rings. I just mean that like if I'm gonna play a video game or whatever, like I don't really want to have a blaster up in space. I usually like fighting dragons or whatever, but I'm not like a huge nerd for either, I guess.
That's what makes us such good friends, is I'm the exact opposite. Hey, of course, you got gaps, I got gaps, we fill each other's gaps.
But the thing that always gets me is that aspect of hope. Like that's one of those things that really, I think, maybe I'm being too poetic, but like I don't know, just like it's like such a human trait. Just that idea that like, but things could get better.
Yeah, that's what I like about Apollo Creed. Is him and Rocky kind of the same guy, except that Apollo Creed is 1,000 times smarter than Rocky. But I like that Apollo Creed happens to be the world heavyweight champion, but also a great businessman. And just like Rocky, this bad thing happens where this guy breaks his arm, and Apollo's like, well, hey, doesn't have to be all bad.
Yeah.
You just make a spectacle out of it. Yeah.
I think it's a symbolic of like the two sides of like whether or not you got lucky.
Yeah.
Apollo Creed got lucky. He was also very talented. But, you know, as Mickey's gym kind of, you know, also signifies, there are a lot of talented boxers.
Yeah.
A lot of really talented boxers.
Absolutely.
Sometimes, like Rocky, they don't do anything with it, you know. Is it his fault? I don't know. We don't really see, you know. He seems to blame other people. It's probably a little bit his fault, too. You know, that's usually how things go. Yeah. But anyways, I really like that idea of, like later on, we'll get to it when we get to it, when they want to interview Rocky. I can't remember exactly how the reporter says it, but she says it with like such care and compassion, where she's like, relax, it's very low stakes, we just want something to give to people at home. And that's the best way to sum up, you know, Apollo's intentions, but also like how well that goes over, like how you don't see it in too much. Yeah. But yeah, I am overwhelmed with that idea, like in that moment of like, wow, like, yeah, just that thing where it's like, this is the guy that makes you feel like dreams come true. Yeah. But anyways, they decide on the Italian stallion. Apollo likes the name. That's kind of it. We get the scene where Rocky lands a date with Adrian. Very tense scene because Paulie kind of comes in. He hasn't.
Shit, hate Paulie. Hate him so much.
He hasn't actually told Adrian, even though he told Rocky that he asked her and she wanted to. It's Thanksgiving. She's making a turkey. You know, she's like, oh, come on, Paulie, it's Thanksgiving. I got a turkey in the oven. He's like, oh, you got a turkey in the oven. He like pulls it out and he throws it in the backyard. He's like, you want the turkey? Yeah, go out in the alley and eat the turkey.
But I love that he rips the leg off first and he's just eating it.
And then later on he's like, hey, Rocky, you want some turkey? She goes in the bedroom or whatever, and he's like, oh, whatever. And Rocky's like, ah, man, Paulie, I feel like I should go, kind of a thing, And he's like, no, talk to her. He's like, I don't know what to say or whatever. And he like knocks on the door. Don't remember what he says here. Do you remember what he says here?
He's just like trying to very like sweetly like, hey, I think me and you could have a good time. But I love the acting from Stallone here, where he's just like every now and then looking over at Paulie and just perfectly in his eyes like, what the fuck is happening right now? Yeah. And I think it's a great scene because he's so defeated in this, just like, oh, I'm gonna try everything I can to get her to come out and go on a date with me. But I love that when she's opens the door, she's ready, which means that the entire time he was doing that, she was like, well, I'm getting ready for my date with Rocky right now. Yeah. They
go out, like you said. I really do love that. Like they go into the ice skating rink, and she's like, "Oh, it's closed." He's like, "Hey, let me schmooze a little bit," or whatever. And he goes, talk to the guy.
Is this place close to the general public, or?
Yeah, and he's like, "No, it's closed." And he's like, "What about if I paid you just for like 10 minutes of the ice kind of thing?" He's like, 10 minutes, $10. He's like, $8. He's like, 10 minutes, $10. He's like, $9. He's like, 10 minutes, and the place is yours, kind of a thing. He's like, all right. And he pays him $10, whatever, and they ice skate, and they have a nice conversation. Like. I can remember at one point he's like, "Hey, why do you think I fight?" She's like, "Why?" And he's like, "Cause I can't sing a dance." Hey yo,
yeah, so good, yeah. And I love their conversation is basically just him talking to her, and every now and then she's like, "Oh yeah, no, definitely." Yeah, she's so unbelievably shy. Yeah, but I do love that little bit where he's like, "Yeah, I fight because my old man told me, hey, your brains ain't that good, so you gotta work up your body." And she laughs. She goes, hey, why's that funny? And she's like, my mom told me the opposite.
He's like, no kidding, your mom told you that?
And she's like, yeah, my mom told me my body wasn't no good, so I'd have to start working up my brains.
Yeah. Then they get kicked off the ice. Also, like I said, the dislocated. Then there's the scene where he invites her up to the apartment. She doesn't really want to go up there. Yeah. But then she does. He says he only has to piss, but then he takes off his sweater or whatever, and he sits down and he tries to show off the turtles. And he talks about how he's like, yeah, about the turtles, just so I could kind of go in there. And he was like, and the rocks, and the bowl. And I had that mountain, but the mountain didn't really work out because I climb up there and then they fall over and they'd be turned over. I have to flip them over. So I had to get rid of the mountain. He's like, and I come in there and I get food for me and stuff like that.
Like, if this scene was just him being like, hey, come up, and she's like, hey, no, it's the 70s. If someone sees me going into a guy's apartment and then coming out, that's bad news bears. Mm-hmm. And then he's like, no, come up. I want to show you my turtles. I would like this scene, but when she's trying to leave and he's like has his hand against the door and stuff like that, I'm like, this isn't good.
Yeah. There is the little point where she's like, Rocky, I've never been alone in a man's apartment. I really shouldn't be here. I don't belong. And he's like, what do you mean? You're my guest. I invited you in here, kind of a thing. But yeah, you're right. There is a big part of it that's a little... but then they end up kissing, making out pretty hard, hot and heavy.
And now they're together forever.
Yeah, inseparable. I think the next day he goes and talks to
Apollo's people.
Yeah, because I think what happens is he like goes into Mickey's for some reason, and someone's like, "Hey, there's a guy that came around earlier looking for you. He's a promoter, or whatever." He goes to the promoter, and I love this scene because he goes in, and he gives the girl like the little, memo or whatever he had gotten, and before he leaves, because it's already been established that like he's got all those pictures that he showed.
Yeah.
He likes hanging on to little things. I mean, even like his mirror is covered in pictures of his family and him and stuff like that. He asks her if he can keep that little thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
it's a big deal to him. And he goes in there and he's not making eye contact and he's speaking very low, but he's like, Rocky, I want you to fight the champ. He's like, oh yeah, like I'm a pretty good sparrer, I'm telling you, I'd be a really good sparring partner. I don't play dirty, I don't pull any punches, whatever. Like I think I'd be a really, really good sparring partner if that's what, the champ needs, kind of a thing. He's like, I don't think you're getting me, Rocky. He's like, I want you to fight Apollo Creed for the championship. And he's like, no.
Yeah, I love that. He's like, would you like to fight him for the heavyweight champion? And he's just sitting there just like looking not at anyone. He's just no.
Yeah, and he's like, what are you talking about, Rock? Wouldn't you want to fight the champion? He's like,
the call.
Yeah, he's like, with no due respect or whatever. I mean, he's the champ. He's the best. He's like, there's nobody better than him. He's like, it wouldn't be a good fight,
But
eventually he does agree, and from here, whatever. We don't have to keep necessarily going scene to scene. But a few things happen. Yeah, we did forget to mention the scene where no, I don't think we forgot to mention the Adrian thing must happen after he's had this conversation, because that's, I don't know. The Gazzo gives him $50, whatever. We'd already talked about it a little bit. The next thing that happens is he's basically going to train himself, because as far as he can figure, no one's ever done anything for him, kind of a thing. And he's going to do it himself. There's a point where he's on TV.
Yes.
And it's a very sweet scene. They're like trying to ask him questions, and he's like all like kind of clammy and stuff. And he's like, "Hey, can I say something real quick? Hey, yo, Adrian!" And like, he says that whole thing. And
I love that because they're watching it together on the couch. He's like, "Huh?"
Yeah, and afterwards he's like, "Hey, how'd you like hearing your name on TV?" It's a very sweet saying. I love it because with the Yo Adrian thing, it's the first time that he comes out of his shell like on TV, because the whole time he's like, "Oh yeah, I don't know. Oh yeah. He's like, "Hey, can I say something real quick? Hey, yo, Adrian." Good. Mickey comes to him, and this is another like just two powerhouses chewing up the scene. Like, this is one of the things I'm talking about.
Might be my favorite scene.
Yeah, where they're wandering around. The whole thing is like staged like a play. Yeah. Like, one of the things I was thinking was like, there's not a lot of tight shots. It's a lot of Rocky and his environment. And I think it's like an older cinematography style. A lot of things are pretty tight these days. Mm-hmm. Not to say everything is. A lot of things aren't. But especially in the 70s, tight was kind of unheard of. But I think this is a very well shot film, because I think having a very good sort of like understanding or whatever of like Rocky in his environment is good. And that bleeds into everything, and it's something that's inherent in any script, but this one just does it so well, like Rocky and his boss and how that's going.
Yeah.
Pays the bills, kind of. His boss is kind of nice to him. But it's not ideal. You can just tell. He doesn't seem super unhappy, but obviously it's not what he wants to be doing. Rocky getting up at 4 a.m. to go running in his like run down street and nobody else is there. Like, or the first time that he climbs the steps and everything's all hazy because it's early in the morning. But anyways, like his relationship to Mickey, or his relationship with Paulie, or I don't know. There's just something about seeing him. Like, let me put it to you this way. In terms of great use of like the screen, we'll talk about the Mickey conversation.
Oh.
But after he turns Mickey away, they turn to this really wide shot of Rocky's street, and Mickey comes down the stairs and he's walking down the sidewalk, because you can still hear Rocky screaming. And then Rocky comes down, and way back in like the back right corner of the screen, you can see Mickey and Rocky. You can't hear anything, but Rocky sticks his hand out to shake Mickey's hand, and then he runs back into his apartment. You can tell through that, like, Rocky's changed his mind. He wants Mickey to...
Yeah, no, they shake hands, and then the train comes by. It's like, ooh, that's so good.
But anyways, what happens in this scene is Mickey comes by, you know, really trying to shield his intentions. He's
literally hat in hand.
Yeah.
Like, oh, hey, Rocky.
Yeah, and just like Rocky, because it's probably a boxer thing, he's got all these clippings and pictures of himself, just the same way that Rocky carries around all these pictures from his fights, you know. He's talking about his experience and like what he knows and what he can give to Rocky. And after just a long time of just pacing around this apartment and following Rocky over here
Rocky's
and Rocky going over there.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, at the end of it, he was like, you want to help me? You want to give this to me? Yeah, he's like, yeah, I needed it 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Where were you 10 years ago? How come you didn't want to give it to me 10 years ago?
You never asked. He goes, I asked all the time.
You just didn't hear me.
You just didn't want to hear.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
And I love when he goes into the bathroom and shuts the door, and Mickey goes to leave and goes, oh, I forgot my hat. Shuts the door, grabs the hat, and goes to go out again. And Rocky comes out of the bathroom and goes, oh, shit, you're not going yet. Shuts the door. It's like a little comedic, but it's also so tough to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then...
it stinks.
Yeah. Yeah. Mickey leaves, and at first, he just goes on a rant talking about everything. He's like, no, you want to give me help? He's like, you come to my apartment. You tell me it stinks. Go ahead and say it stinks and stuff like that. He's like, 10 years ago. He's like, I wasted all this. Your fault. You want to give it to me now? It's been 10 years kind of a thing. And then eventually he's like, yeah. He's like, that's right. My apartment. You want to come live here? It stinks. It fucking stinks. It stinks in here. And he's just yelling and shit. And then, like I said, the thing happens later where he does accept Mickey as his trainer. He also eats raw eggs. Anyways.
He does. He drinks them for sure.
Yeah, I like that he smokes and drinks.
Turns out, I'm pretty sure raw eggs does nothing good for you.
Yeah. So anyways, he's training now. I also like the subtle ways in which Paulie's trying to kind of get a handout now that Rocky's got a big payday coming.
Yeah, he's a little quick.
Yeah. But then it's also one of those things where again, Paulie is, there's more bad than good, but there is a little good. I mean, he still does give Rocky meat every morning. He does.
Yeah,
I mean, he has a kind of a
stuff like that.
What's that?
I can't remember what the conversation is, but it's one of the first or second times he goes there to punch the meat.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what Paulie says to him, but he's like, blah blah blah, and I'm like,
he's like, you balling my sister?
Or something like that, and
he's like, don't talk dirty about your sister. He's like, are you fucking my sister?
Yeah, and he's like, I forgot what he says to him, but it makes Rocky smile, and he goes, well, I'm gonna kill you, and it's like, oh, these guys are just the best of friends still.
Yeah,
but I think
it's when they run outside after that whole thing about the ball your sister, whatever it is. I think.
I do love the first time Rocky.
No, that's what it is. No, I think it's when he has the reporter there.
Yes.
He shows up and the reporter's there. Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Reporter, fun fact, I'm pretty sure from a local Michigan news station.
Oh.
But
we were talking about
the meat. That's what I was talking about. I don't know about you, but I do love. They're in there. They're talking about the meat. He's like, "Oh, fuck, shit, balls, Mickey. It's cold in here. Does it ever snow?" He's like, "Where did all these come from? Who killed all the?" I love he keeps asking that. Who killed all these cows? Yeah. But they're walking through it, and it's just a little Rockyism that I love. They're in the middle of a conversation, and he walks past one of the cows and jabs a little bit. He's like, "Moo." Yeah, where'd all these come from? Moo.
But anyways, that happens a couple of times. He comes to the, meat locker. Paulie keeps asking him to get him a job working for Gaza. He punches the meat. There's the conversation where they have about you fucking my sister kind of thing. He's like, don't talk dirty about your sister like that. One time he comes there and he's punching the meat for the reporters kind of a thing, and that's really a sweet scene. I like that. Apollo's coach is watching that, and Apollo.
Like, yo, Apollo, this guy's punching fucking meat. We have a problem.
Yeah, he's like, you want to take a look at this, and Apollo's like, nah, Gloria, get me another cup of coffee. But anyways,
but Apollo, look at this.
Yeah. Anyways, one of the other notable scenes that happens is Paulie just flipping shit. He comes home just shit faced.
Yeah.
And he overhears Rocky saying the thing about how one second. Oh, yeah. I forgot I had a bunch of notes for Synecdoche that I wasn't looking at. Real quick, I'll just also say Oklahoma gets mentioned in this.
Oh, I didn't notice. That's fun.
Also, yeah.
Yeah, it's never mentioned in the I'm Thinking of Anything books. Or, excuse me, I'm Thinking of Ending Things book. So, yeah, it's got to be just banging into kids' bed.
Well, yeah, and I'll give you another one. You know that point in the adaptation where she was like, I wish I was a baby. I wish I was new.
Yeah.
During the climax.
Yeah.
in this, there's a point where Hazel and him are like at like a funeral, and she leans over and she was like, I used to be a baby.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh, also totally forgot about the scene where they go home to his parents. And he's like, you can sleep in my parents' bed. And they open the door and he's like, I thought someone would have cleaned it up.
Yeah, I don't know how I forgot about that.
Oh, shit. And also just another one of those things that, like, again, a lot of Synecdoche, New York can kind of be summed up as like, I'm 13 and that's deep. But whatever, you can eat my whole ass. I love it. I love when he's like, there are 13 million people. Can you imagine that? 13 million people and not one of them is an extra. Good. Yeah. Anyways, and then also the first date that him and Hazel go on when he rips up that paper while he's like nervous or whatever, and she's like, let's go to my scrapbook. And then it's in her scrapbook, hours later, it's actually in her scrapbook. Yeah, it's very cute. Anyways, back to Rocky. His apartment number, 1818. Right now, I'm reading Frankenstein, published in 1818. That means nothing. Also, when she's in the apartment, I'm pretty sure he hangs up his coat on a machete. And also, next to the mirror, there's like a fucking brass knuckle knife stabbed in the wall.
Yes, you're right, correct.
Yeah. Anyways. Oh yeah, that's right. He was like, when he's on TV, what he actually says is, hey, can I just say something real quick? Yeah, I just want to say hi to my girlfriend. Yo, Adrian. That's what it is. Anyways.
I do also love the machete thing. It reminded me when he's there, Mickey's talking to him and he's like kind of ignoring him. He starts throwing darts. Does not have a dartboard, just throws darts into the side of the wall.
There's also a couple other things. I also like the bar he goes to is called Lucky 7. There's a point where he has a conversation, I think, with Mickey about how he ain't never had any luck. And then I think it's a conversation with Gazzo when he's getting the $50 where he says, he refers to the situation Rocky's now in as a bit of freak luck. Anyways. Yeah. Just before the are you fucking my sister thing, that's when he says the gaps thing to Paulie. He's like, what do you like about my sister? He's like, I don't know, I got gaps. She got gaps. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about, gaps? And he's like, well, I got gaps, she's got gaps, we fill each other's gaps, you know? Anyways. Yeah, Paulie, we're at the scene where Paulie freaks out.
Yeah.
Paulie overhears him saying the Gazzo thing about how he's like, I don't think he wants to work for Gazzo. I don't think Gazzo would hire him. I don't think he'd be good at that kind of a thing. And Paulie's like, oh, I'm asking for a handout somehow. And he starts smashing shit. And he's like, get the hell out of my house. And Adrian's like, it's my house too. He's like, you get the hell out of my house too, kind of a thing. And
pulls out the bat.
Yeah, and he calls her like a loser and like, you know, like, you ruined my life. I ain't even married because of you, kind of a thing. She's like, what are you talking about, Paulie? I clean up after you. I cook for you. What the fuck do you want from me? I'm not a loser. You make me feel like a loser my whole life, kind of a thing.
Yeah, fuck Paulie.
Anyways, and then Adrian's like, you need a roommate? And they start living together.
Cute.
It is very cute.
Sleeping together as a little twin bed. Love it.
Not together. He sleeps on the couch.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh. All right, because we can't fool around.
Because he's got a heart of gold. Anyways.
No, because he's wrestling. He's boxing. You can't fool around. You can't be clogging your head with that pet shop girl.
Oh, yeah. I don't think that's ever explicitly stated, though, other than Mickey saying, like, you still dating that girl? Stop dating that girl. Bad for you.
No, before she gets kicked out, the first time Rocky trains, he comes back to her place, and she's, like, giving him ice and stuff. She's like, you want me to rub you down? He's like, no. And then she's like, rubs him down a little bit and tries to kiss him. He's like, no fooling around. And she's like, oh, you mean it? He's like, no fooling around. I got to stay strong, which I love that. It's like, in order to box well, I got to be horny as hell when I'm fighting.
But it is true. Fighters do that.
Yeah.
To this day. I just don't remember that scene for some reason. But, yeah, so the next thing is that I remember really standing out. There may be some other little things I'm forgetting. Rocky wakes up in the middle of the night before the fight, and he wanders through town, eventually wanders to the ring. Mm-hmm. He's looking at the big posters of him and Apollo, and the promoter comes in. He's like, Rocky, what are you doing here, kind of a thing. And he's like, this poster's wrong. And he's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I'm wearing white shorts with a red stripe. And he's like, yeah, well, it doesn't really matter, does it? I'm sure you'll put on a good show. And the it doesn't really matter, does it, is something that Rocky kind of says throughout the movie. He always goes, it don't matter. It don't matter. It don't matter.
Fun fact, just like the ice skating thing, they just delivered that prop and the shorts were wrong on it. And they're like, we need to fix this. And they're like, we ain't got that kind of money. So Stallone was like, I guess I'm rewriting this scene right now.
And yeah, that whole interaction kind of a thing. I mean, part of the reason why he went out was also this, but that whole thing is just, you know, culminates in like him coming home and sitting down on the bed that Adrian sleeps in. She kind of wakes up or whatever, and he's like, I'm not gonna win tomorrow.
Yeah,
seems
great.
And she's like, oh, what are we gonna do? And I love that she says, well, what are we gonna do? And she's like, you worked so hard or whatever. And he's like, yeah. He's like, but he's in another league. I don't have a chance. He's just he says that thing about how he's like, but if I could just go the distance. Nobody's ever gone the distance with a champ. you know? So if I could do that, it would just make me know that I'm not a bum from the neighborhood, you know? Great scene.
Chris, I'm getting teary-eyed listening to you say it. It's so good. Do we miss the good montage?
Yeah, where he's running down the street.
Love it.
Yeah.
Fun fact, I think this is like the first or second movie to use a Steadicam.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, you know, because they got it in the truck driving next to him while he's running and, like, going up the stairs and stuff like that. Because, fun fact, I think the lead camera operator on this movie is the guy that invented the Steadicam. And so, like, I've seen a picture of, like, the rig for, like, his prototype that they use on this movie. It's just, like, a camera sitting on top of, like, 11 car batteries or something like that. But no, I absolutely love where he's, like, running behind the van or whatever like that. And then just starts running faster than it.
Yeah.
It's just... I don't know why that gets me so hyped, is watching someone run a little bit faster than a car.
And I also have to mention, like, they keep the Rocky theme throughout this whole thing. But this one is my favorite incarnation. I love when it's just... I'm going to butcher his name probably, but Bill Conti. It's just a little soul song.
Yeah.
You know, just with the... Getting stronger, just like really hanging in the background, like actually a part of the whole thing, you know.
And I love the lyrics are like pretty on the nose, just like basically like Rocky's running faster.
Yeah. Beautiful song though. There's something about like the whole thing, just the horns, and as it softens for like that to kind of happen, where he's just that. Yeah. Gonna fly now.
And I love at the end when he wins, they play it like at 100 times speed. Also, just a little thing that makes me laugh every time I see it that we skip past when he starts training with Mick and like he like ties his feet together because his footwork is bad or whatever.
Yeah.
And those two girls come in and go, Rocky, can we get your autograph? And he goes, get out of here. Go on, get your chicken asses out of here.
Anyways, the fight comes. He's wearing this big-ass robe that has shamrock meats on the back. So he's like, I'm doing a favor for a friend.
Yeah, Paulie gets X amount of money.
$3,000, I get the robe.
That's so good.
Yeah. And I love that even the commentators are like, all right, and the Italian stand has come out wearing a robe that says shamrock meats in the back. Shamrock meats, everybody. But Apollo comes out with this whole, you know, parade-type charade, and like, you know, he's dressed up like Uncle Sam throwing quarters into the audience. I also like that it's low budget, so you can actually see in the background the entire stadium is empty. They just have the floor seats filled.
Exactly.
Probably the only thing that I've seen in this movie where I was like, oh, okay, but I'm not like gonna mark it down for that. It's really good. But anyways,
there's a Carla Weathers quote I want to read to you, but keep talking. I'll find it.
Anyways, the bout starts, and from the rip, Rocky's just eating punches.
That's the thing. Rocky's not the better fighter in any of these movies. He can just get punched in the head 1,000 times and be fine.
But he catches Apollo and actually knocks him down in the first. He goes down for about 7 or 8 seconds. Round 1 ends. Round 2, again, you know, homeboy's just eating punches. But again, and he gets clocked a couple times, but he clocks the champ again. And when that round's over, I believe the coach is kind of like, Jesus Christ, this dude doesn't know that it's like a show. This guy thinks it's a fight. You got to go in there and end it now, kind of a thing. Long story short, it does go the distance, and by decision is Apollo. But Rocky couldn't give a fuck, and he's all blind, and he's just like, Adrian, and everybody's trying to ask him a question, like, you know, like, is there gonna be a rematch? Is there gonna be another fight? He's like, no, there's no rematch, Adrian. And like Paulie tries to get in, and the cops stop him from getting in the ring, because he's like, I know that guy. He's like, yeah, buddy, I know that guy too, whatever. But because they're having an interaction, he like lifts the rope for Adrian to go behind him, kind of a thing, and Adrian comes in and they hug, and then the movie's over.
So good.
Yeah.
Like, I love, and it's like just not even like you can miss it. But in the background when they're like, oh yeah, Apollo Creed wins, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, I love that Rocky loses in this movie, but he went the distance, so he won.
He's going the distance.
He's going for speed. Hold on, I found the Apollo Creed quote.
Okay.
This comes from IMDb, which means it might not be real. During his audition, Carl Weathers was sparring with Sylvester Stallone and accidentally punched him in the chin.
Yeah.
Sorry, on the chin. You don't get punched in the chin, you get punched on the chin. Stallone told Weathers to calm down, and it was only an audition, and Weathers said that if he was allowed to audition with a, quote, real actor, not a stand-in, he would be able to do a lot better. Director John A. Avildsen smiled and told Weathers that Stallone was the real actor and writer of the film. Weathers looked at Stallone and thoughtfully for a moment and said, well, maybe he'll get better. And Stallone offered him the part immediately.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's great.
That is good. Another thing we forgot to mention was during the date with Adrian, the first one, wherever, he's like, hey, it's like, whatever it is. He's like 16 or like 60 fights or some 40 fights, however many fights.
Never broke my nose.
He's like, never broke my nose, never once. You know, he's like, I've been hit by everybody. I get to eat a million punches. And he's like, never broke my nose. But like in like round 2, he's like, oh, your nose is just smashed up. It's a million pieces.
Yeah, I love that. No one's gone the distance with Apollo, and no one's broken Rocky's nose. And he gets his nose broken, and he goes the distance with him. I love this movie.
Yeah.
I was table talk before this episode started. I texted Chris. I was like, can we do this tomorrow and put out an episode late, because I've been going pretty hard the past 2 days unintentionally. I've had a mix up with my medications. I have no brain today at all. I don't know if I can record a podcast. Waiting for Chris to respond to me, I watched the second half of Rocky and was like, I could build a house right now. Nothing gets me as motivated as this movie does. I love it so much.
Yeah. It's great. I anything I say about it's gonna be an understatement. But yeah, it's the story of an underdog. It's they bill it as the American dream, and while I don't totally subscribe to that, the like mythological arc of that is a very inspirational story. It's a story about hope. It's a story about the little guy, and it's one where we come out on top. A+, phenomenal movie. Expertly made. It's what a hell of an achievement. It's one of those things like Halloween that I've always put in the category of, like, as far as I'm concerned, this is, whether you want to call it an indie movie or an art house movie, it's something special in that regard as well. It's like that it even got made and under the budget constraints and the fight with the studio for Stallone to be the guy. It's really a marvel.
It's
and an inspiration, a very big inspiration.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's one of those situations where, again, don't subscribe to the American dream and stuff like that. But the story of this movie getting made is almost the story of this movie. It's the story of Stallone, the story of this movie getting made, and the story of Rocky, where it's just this underdog succeeding against everything. But even beside that, this movie is just spectacular.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, as I was saying earlier, like it's just one of those things that's almost play-esque, like just Stallone or Rocky, if you want to consider Rocky, in a room, walking around feeding turtles and looking at pictures of him as a kid, is one of those things that the best way I can put it is that like a picture is worth 1,000 words. Like all the quiet parts of this movie are as moving as like Mickey and him arguing, or him and Adrian going on like a date. It's one of those things where I can't say this because it's actually someone's username, but every shot is a work of art.
Nice, great. You nailed that.
So A+.
Yeah, to give this movie an A+, of course.
Yeah.
Love it.
Wow.
Yeah. This is a long one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is a very long one.
Okay. Well, that's that. That's just fan.
Yeah. Gotta get out of here.
Yeah. If you need more soup, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or go to our website, eatingsoupalone.com. And until next time...
So, for Chris, who's editing this later, hi. I hope you're doing well. I love you a bunch. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm glad we're playing Rock Band together a lot. It's a lot of fun. I'm glad you're as into it as you are. And I share the toy flush, so here you come.